I've been a Rotarian since about 1996. And when I had been a member for just about a year, we were still having we had just started the Rotary Ski Challenge. And we would go to all of the clubs in the area and invite them to come to our ski challenge. It was our big fundraiser. And I am naturally a fairly shy person, so I am naturally a fairly shy person. So I had trouble with going to visit another club. And the club president called me up and said, "Come on, Charlie, we're going to go visit a club." And I found that it was a really interesting experience to learn to see things about other clubs. And I put up one of we go and visit clubs and we take a banner from our club and we get banners from their clubs. And I pulled out, we have these banners that we have picked up over the years. And I pulled one out and hung it up this morning and I looked at it, and the third one down on the right is Alicante, Spain, which was an afternoon club meeting where I had a little too much wine. And the green one on the bottom row is from Madrid, and it's the most expensive club that I have ever visited. How many of you have visited another club? It's just something that you really need to do. It's somehow over the years, I picked up a collection of banners of my own. America's Georgia, Habitat for Humanity, Barnard Castle, Habitat, Friendship Exchange. This is where I was on September 11th, 2001, still friendly with that couple. Friendship Exchange, Newcastle, Friendship Exchange, Venice of New Jersey, Cranford, New Jersey. This is one that I haven't visited the club, but there were people from that club on a Rotary work trip in Colima, Mexico, and the people there wanted me to have a copy of their banner. Alvarez, Mexico. This is that same trip. We visited 4 clubs. You need to get out and visit clubs, and you'll discover as you do that the very best clubs are welcoming and warm and glad to have you. We have a big box of our banners in the closet, so as you travel, take a banner, swap, come in, and we'll start hanging up. Remind ourselves that Rotary is an international organization and that fellowship is as important as service. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Great reminder. It's always interesting to visit other clubs because even though Rotary is an international organization, we're all connected. Each club has its own culture and personality. And I've only visited a couple, and only in Vermont. But what an opportunity that we can have friends and fellowship all over the world. All right, next I'm going to have Tom Jacob come up and introduce our speaker for today.
He'll be right back. So take it a long way around. Maybe Chris can give us one of his jokes in the meantime. So.
He said he forgot all his jokes.
No. No. So Chris, do you have a joke here?
Yes. What do you call a bear with no teeth? A gummy bear.
Oh. There you go. Okay, here's Allie. Allie is the director, development director, I believe it is, right, of one of the iconic venues here in Burlington of the Flynn Theater. We all know and love the Flynn. We've all had many performances there. So she's going to speak to us, and she's also newly elected city council of Burlington in the most recent election. So, well, congratulations on that. So, without further ado, we'll give it over to Allie. And welcome the folks online too.
Oh, wait. Anyway, so nice to be here with you all. I'm Allie Schachter. Thank you, John, for the nice introduction. And I'm here today as development director of the Flynn, which is such an incredible pillar of our community. I feel so privileged to work there every day. And so I was just going to spend a little bit of time sort of talking about the broad range of things happening at the Flynn and a little bit behind the scenes of how it all works. And then we'll have time for questions. And I may have some of the answers or I may not, depending on what you ask. But the Flynn really has two sides to the organization. We've got the main stage shows that I hope all of you have been to. So we have incredible acts coming through all the time. And then we have this sort of like more mission-based, free community and education side that not everyone always sees, but that I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about as well. And so we sort of have like this earned revenue side of the house, which is all of our main stage shows. And then what I help oversee and raise the money for is all of the free programming for the community, for families and kids, that we're doing across the state. So I'm going to talk about both. So I wanted to open with an exciting statistic, which is that last season we had the largest audience in Flynn history. We welcomed almost 160,000 people to performances. 130-ish thousand were actually to our main stage shows. So that was really exciting for us. There's a real, I think, especially in this time of division and polarization and everything going on in the world, I think that Flynn provides a really important place for community to come together. So in talking about our main stage shows, a lot of people don't sort of see behind the scenes that we have a rental program. So sometimes the shows that we're presenting are rentals from other local venues like Higher Ground, or some national orgs, national promoters, like Outback and things like that. So people call us and say, can we use the Flynn space for this performance we want to bring in? We also have really long-standing partnerships with the Vermont Youth Orchestra, with the Vermont Symphony Orchestra, and with Lyric Theater. So those we sort of consider rentals, but really they're deep, long-standing partnerships with these incredible other arts organizations in the state who perform at the Flynn, and we have great partnerships with them. And then we have a lot of our own Flynn presented works, and that includes our Broadway series and many of the shows that you sort of do come to the Flynn for. And John had mentioned there might be some interest in kind of how does it all work behind the scenes? How do we figure out what to program and how to kind of set the schedule for all of our shows? So I'm going to do my best because this is not my side of what the Flynn does, but I do think I also find it very interesting. So very often we're planning more than a year out for what shows are going to be coming through. When a tour, let's say an off-Broadway tour, a Broadway show that's now on national tour is going to be happening, they'll call us and say, we're going to be in your area. Would you be interested in partnering with us? And there's always all sorts of logistics to figure out, like what are their sets? Can it work on the size of our stage? You know, our loading dock is sort of particular. We're a very old building, so there's all sorts of logistics we're constantly working out in the background of like, how can we make this work? And the national tours do an amazing job of adapting to each different stage and each different theater that they're on. So we do a lot of like talking in advance, especially with the bigger shows like the Broadway shows. And then, and dance is, you know, planned very far in advance. And then some of the music and particularly comedy might be more like 3 to 6 months lead time. But we do a lot of like hearing from agents. They reach out to us. They're interested in using our space. And then we're also doing our own proactive outreach of calling different artists, different agents that we know may be in the area or are in the area and see if they would want to come stop through the Flynn. And we're always trying to make sure we have a diversity of programming available. So we don't want it to be all comedy or all dance, right? We want it to be a broad spectrum, appeal to as broad a group of Vermonters as we can. And I do think we do a very good job at that. People can almost always find something for them at the Flynn. So that's sort of, you know, and then every time we get an agent reaching out to us, we'll kind of say, how did tickets for a show like this sell in the past? Do we think there's demand or interest in this? How many similar shows do we already have booked for this year? So there's a whole art sort of happening behind the scenes all the time with what the Flynn is putting on. And then we have all of this free programming that we do for kids and families and community members. And one example of that is at the Burlington Jazz Festival, which mark your calendars. It's going to be June 4th through 8th this year. We'll be announcing next month. We'll have a big press day of everyone who's going to be coming through to perform and what the schedule of the event's going to be. But, you know, we welcome 25,000 plus people to Burlington for the free jazz festival every June. We do we do waterfront programming right down at the Burlington waterfront. We have bands, especially school bands and students up and down Church Street. We do some main stage programming for the Jazz Festival as well. We do a big reception for our members we're gonna be doing this year. So if you are a Flynn member, stay tuned. So we've got some really cool stuff happening with the Jazz Festival. And we do make that an opportunity, not just to be presenting music, but to be uplifting the next generation of jazz musicians. So last year we had 715 students performing up and down Church Street across 35 different schools all across Vermont. So it's a really big day for them. They might come in from, 2+ hours away to perform on Church Street for a live crowd, get that experience, get to work with other students and other artists who are in town for the Jazz Festival. So that's really exciting. And then we do a lot of partnering with schools. So we run a program called Poetry Out Loud, which is a program of the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Poetry Foundation. Last year, we worked with 22 different schools, and we're at a similar level this year, they recite poetry, they memorize, they get up on stage, they present it. We start with, 22 schools and working individually with each school, and then we have semifinals. And actually Friday night is the finals, from 5:30 to 7:30 at the Flynn. And then whatever student wins that will go on to the nationals and represent Vermont at the in DC, at this National Poetry Slam and Poetry Conference. So we do that. That's just an amazing program we do. Last year, it engaged almost 3,000 Vermont students. We also run summer camps every summer, and then classes and camps all throughout the year for adults on things like creative writing to, young kids. And this year we're doing circus arts and Broadway shows and musicals, and it's great what we do. Last year we did called Planet Cardboard, where people just created an entire world out of cardboard and a whole show to go with it, and then presented it at the end of the week. So it's really joyful. We do free performances for preschool aged kids called Flynn Zone once a month, where we work with a local artist to come in and take over the Flynn lobby. And it's really warm and joyful and exciting, and people can come to that. We partner with places like the King Street Center for after school programs, and we do a lot of workshops in schools as well. We also have a program called Kickline, where we work with students all across the state to learn a dance, and then they come to the Burlington waterfront and they present the dance, spend a whole day dancing outside on the waterfront, and then present it at the end of the day. It's really joyful. And then our kind of flagship student program is our student matinee series. So very often, some of the evening shows that you all might see advertised, we are also able to do during the day for students. And so we'll have school students all across the state. Last year, it was almost 11,000 students. This year it's going to be closer to 12,000 to 15,000 come to the Flynn for a day. They show up in their school buses, they get to see a show, they get to very often might get to have a Q&A with the artists or ask them questions. Sometimes they'll even eat lunch with the artists afterwards. And so we just kind of open their worlds to the magic of the arts. Those are my favorite days when I'm working during the day and get to help with a student matinee performance. And then we do a couple other free things. We did a Snap Festival each of the last 2 years, which was supporting up and coming playwrights. So we bring in a sort of well-known established playwright to lead, to do their own performance, and then to lead an entire weekend of working with local playwrights who've been selected through a pretty competitive process to refine their storytelling and their playwriting, and then we perform it for the community. We do that all for free. And then we also run some dance classes for older folks. We have an incredible movement for Parkinson's class that we do, I think, twice a week for people, dealing with Parkinson's and other movement disorders to come to the Flynn, to get to dance, to be in community with each other. It brings tears to my eyes every time I witness that beautiful community that they have. So that's just a little bit about the Flynn sort of. We have so much happening on the main stage, and then all of this other amazing work happening for the community. And I could keep chatting, but I also want to open it up for questions. And I'm so grateful to all of you who hopefully come and support us and come see shows. And we couldn't do it without the community really supporting our work.
I was a little surprised that you said people reach out, like shows that are going off Broadway, reach out to you guys. Do you ever see a show and you're like, I have to get that one?
Yes.
And what's like the biggest get that the Flynn has gotten
that's-
because of you guys?
That's interesting. It's definitely a back and forth. So like, yes, shows will reach out to us and say, we're gonna be in your area and we're sort of a known venue among the tour circuits and people who plan tours, but certainly there's a healthy dose of, we saw that.
Yeah.
You know, years out that we would like to program them. I would say our biggest get, particularly with Broadway, was this past October, we did Hadestown, which was unbelievable. I see some nodding. I hope some of you caught it. So that's a really amazing show. It's still running on Broadway. It's won a bunch of awards. It was also written by Anais Mitchell, who's a Vermonter. So it was and actually like sort of the very early stages of Hadestown were created sort of at the Flynn and right around the Flynn. So it was really emotional. We did a 4-show, completely sold out run. And Anais was there for one of the days and spoke about like this show wouldn't even exist without the Flynn. And it was such a joyful 4 days. And it's a really like ambitious show. Like the staging is ambitious, the music is ambitious. So, you know, for us to be able to bring Hadestown and welcome Anais back home really was amazing. So that was a really exciting show that we did. And yeah, the buzz in the air for that week that Hadestown was here this past October was big. And we are trying, so Shayna Taub, who wrote Suffs, is also a Vermonter, which is, I think, just ended its Broadway run. And we are already doing that, like, hey, we want you. We want to celebrate you and what Vermonters, like the art that Vermonters are putting out in the world. So I guess I hope you'll see that come through in a couple of years. But so those are some examples of like, we reach out and say, we want you to come here. Yeah.
Any chance of the Hamilton? It's incredible.
Wouldn't that be amazing? I can try to find out. I don't, yeah, I'll put that in for sure. I don't know where they're touring right now, but
But they got more than one.
I'm sure they have more than one too.
Oh, if you take requests, Nate Bargatze is a comedian that would love to have, in Burlington.
Get my pen. All right, I'm gonna write this all down.
There's also a question on, online here. Dave, you wanna go ahead?
Yeah, I actually, I don't know if it's your responsibility or your bailiwick, but one of the things I've noticed that in looking at some of the performers that might be performing at the Flynn, that the cost of the tickets is getting to be almost prohibitive. I think Grace Potter's there, and her tickets were, the lowest price was $160 per ticket. And I don't know if that's anything that the Flynn is doing to address or has any kind of concerns about how it's, perhaps limiting the accessibility of some of these concerts. Nate Bargatze would probably be $300 a ticket if he were at the Flynn. It seems like it's just getting out of hand.
I'm actually very glad that you're naming this. So there's two answers, but one is very important. The first is that we don't have very large margins in our ticket sales. So yes, the shows are very often pretty expensive, and we do our absolute best to keep them affordable. However, what I will say is the prices you're naming are higher than they should be. And what we encounter all the time is ticket resellers coming up first on the Google search when you try to buy tickets for the Flynn and selling them at really inflated prices. Like 160 being the cheapest ticket is not a Flynn price. So I don't think it shouldn't be. So I'm so happy we're naming this. We try to shout it from the rooftops, only buy your tickets at flynnvt.org. It is not, no matter how much we try to spend on Google ads and things like that, these resellers always beat us. If you Google purchase tickets at the Flynn for a thing, you will get ticket resellers selling at really inflated prices. And sometimes they're not even valid tickets. And we encounter this constantly. And we have like an entire full-time team member devoted to fraud and trying to stop these resellers from buying up tickets and then reselling them. So flynnvt.org is the only place to buy tickets. Sometimes our shows do sell really rapidly, and then that's when the resellers can really sell it at very expensive prices online. And what I will say is there's a benefit if you want to become a Flynn member, you get early ticket access. So for the big shows like Bonnie Raitt sold out just to members within not even 24 hours. So being a Flynn member is a great way to get the best access to the tickets right when they go on sale and have as little trouble getting caught up in the whole reseller thing. But it's actually a really big problem, not just for the Flynn, but for presenters all over the country.
There's another one online.
And
also.
Jude had a
And-
question.
Oh, okay, sorry. Jude,
Um,
go ahead.
I know that I've heard in the past that there are sometimes some really bizarre requirements, he's smiling already, requirements by some either performers or groups. What's your experience been with that? How do you manage it? Somewhere, I forget who it was, but someone said that they wouldn't fly unless they only would fly on a private plane.
Well, very often, so we do have an artist services person, right, who coordinates, and I can't really speak to how they get to the Flynn. We don't tend to cover their travel. We have like a flat, the way that it often works is we have like a flat artist fee that sort of they make, and then they sort of deal with their transportation themselves. But we do get, you know, all sorts of requests for like a specific flavor of Gatorade that like, that has to be there. And all sorts of food and drinks and needs. And so, and we have an incredible person behind the scenes, just keeping our artists happy. She works really hard, and does a fantastic job. So yeah, we do our best to make sure that if they want a certain, you know, maybe there's something they always want when they're up on stage or about to go up on stage. Yeah, if she were here, she would have lots of stories, but I know that we sometimes have signs that are like, do not touch this. It is we need this because it is the exact flavor or thing that an artist requested, and if it goes missing, we're in huge trouble.
Right, so we wanna do Dan,
I have a question.
well, why don't we do Dan first and then we'll go to you, okay?
Good
Go
morning.
ahead.
So, thank you for coming today. One of the most unusual performances I saw there was Arch, where you had a barrel burning wood during the performance. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you were able to pull that off.
That was amazing. Did anyone else see Arch? Okay, just to describe this performance, thank you so much for naming this. We actually brought in a group based out of England this last fall that in real time has a choir, about a 4-person choir, and then people in the audience randomly sort of join the choir. It's intentional, but it's not obvious. Singing this very like guttural, primal, just very beautiful like tones and songs, you know, they're harmonizing with each other. And then while that's happening, it takes like 1 to 2 hours. The artists up on stage build a freestanding arch out of concrete and ice blocks. And you watch it sort of slowly get built over a frame. And it's so scientific, and there's all these ways that it has like everything has to be sized within like 2 millimeters to work. And so the way that they sort of maintain and protect the ice, and it's wild. And then they take the frame away and the arch is freestanding, and it's beautiful because the lights are kind of shining through the ice and a bunch of it's concrete. It's very magical. And then they light a fire under it and it melts, and you watch it melt and then it falls. So one of the things that we really do try to prioritize, and our current executive director cares a lot about, is called art in public space. And so, you know, in addition to these main stage shows that we produce and all the artists that come through, we are really working to support artists who do this really sort of groundbreaking work and do it in a way that's really accessible for the community to all be a part of. So Arch, we did 2 performances. One was on our main stage. I believe it was free of charge to come. And we really wanted that to be a free show, and these artists were incredible. And that was very ambitious. I'll get back to that in a minute, to have like fire in the Flynn Theater. And then we did it up on the very top of Mount Philo that same week, and that was magic. So we had about 400 people come to the top of Mount Philo. You could drive or hike it, but it was dark afterwards, so most people drove up. And then you were just on the top of this mountain, the sun was setting, the mountains were there, and you got to experience that. It was like, many people called it like a spiritual experience. It was amazing. So we do try to do these sort of like a little bit kind of off the beaten path, avant-garde, groundbreaking, interesting works. And we're trying to do more of them just to continue to really support the arts ecosystem, both here in Vermont and bringing a lot of, really kind of groundbreaking art to Vermont. That specific performance in the Flynn was very ambitious. We had to work with the fire marshal, and we had firefighters on site. We did, we have a pretty intensive ventilation system. It's just such a big space. So that was all tested and made, we had to go through all sorts of hoops to make sure we could actually do it. And then we had to do some protecting of the floor as well for when the concrete fell and it didn't ruin our stage. So that was very ambitious. But I think sometimes in the name of art, it's important to kind of push the limits and see what you can do. And we did it, and it was very memorable for those of you who were able to catch it. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
I have two questions. So Marty and I have been longtime supporters of the Flynn and love your programming and so on. We have been also longtime supporters of the Jazz Festival and have been disappointed that it's been abbreviated in the last few years.
Yeah.
Is there any plans in store to expand it again and to bring in some more jazz greats? Because that has changed over the years.
Yes, we continue to, do you want to ask your second question or you want me to answer that one first?
Answer this one first, because this one's a little more dicey.
Oh, I'm ready for dicey. So with the Jazz Festival, we did sort of post-COVID, it used to be 10 days. Now it's 5 days. We also made it entirely free. A lot of the way that like artists used to structure deals and the timing of how things were, a lot's changed post-COVID. So for us to be able to sustain the festival and keep it financially viable, we have had to make some changes. And we are always thinking about how can we be sort of continuing to make it a real community thing where like lots of community members are involved and people feel really happy about it. And some people, love, the 5 days of programming are still fantastic. I think that we do, but we do hear a lot from community members who say, it used to be 10 days, it used to be all these other things. And we're doing our absolute darndest to make sure that we can sustain it and keep doing all of that. And we do have really nice relationships with a lot of the local jazz community and like, how can we just be uplifting, all of us in sort of the Jazz Festival. So we're working that through and still trying to figure that out. The post-COVID world, in many ways, the Flynn and so many of us, not at the Flynn, have been impacted, and the arts world in particular is kind of still recovering, and just the timing of how things are booked, prices, everything has really shifted post-COVID. So that's had a lot to do with it.
The more dicey question is, I know because of the impression that Burlington isn't as safe as it used to be, many of my peers are not going, especially to the evening shows. How is the Flynn addressing that issue?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we hear this a lot, and Burlington is, a wonderful city and is having a fair share of challenges right now. And we hear a lot from people who say, I don't feel comfortable coming downtown anymore. And it breaks our heart. And we really are we are in close dialogue with the city. Particularly, we're in closest dialogue with the city around the Great Streets project that's happening. Because in addition to everything else going on in Burlington, there's a ton of construction right around the Flynn right now. But we have on-site security for every show. And they stand both outside the main entrance and inside the door. So we really do our best to make sure that patrons, when they come, feel safe, and if they need assistance leaving or things like that, we can't always personally walk people to their cars, but we have like there's a lot of people and a security presence right there, and if you're able to park right near the Flynn, you should be in pretty good shape with leaving. We've had no incidents, I want the record to state, even though a lot of people do feel uneasy. So, it's really just, we're doing our best to sort of, and I think the Flynn plays such an important role in keeping people coming downtown and keeping our local business community. They staff around the Flynn schedule. So I actually feel like it's great to come to the Flynn. And if you're gonna come downtown, doing it on a night where there's a show is probably one of the safest times you could do it, because there are so many people There is parking nearby. We do have on-site security. The businesses are well-staffed on those evenings. So it's really just, we have not had any incidents, but we're very aware that, people are feeling this and, yeah.
Yeah, just how long has the Flynn been part of the community?
Well, the Flynn Theater is about to turn 100 in a couple years, but the Flynn in its current iteration since like 1980.
Thank you. Maybe you can start changing some of the downtown stuff with your new.
That's
I know,
right,
that's
exactly.
what
Congratulations, and I'm glad you have your voice back.
It's like 90%.
Remind me what you do for, the Flynn does for fundraising, because you don't do it on ticket sales.
That's right. So our membership program is a huge part of our fundraising. So when you become a member to the Flynn, 100% of it goes to all of the free programming we do for, in the community and in the schools and things like that. We have grants. We have a lot of corporate sponsors who fund our shows or who sponsor our shows. We have major donors who just really care about the arts and the Flynn and give and sustain our work, which is huge. And then we have a big annual gala that's coming up on May 3rd this year, Saturday, May 3rd. There's gonna be an email announcement going out this Saturday announcing it, that helps bring in some funds for our work. So yeah, I think those are probably corporate sponsors, individuals, foundation grants, membership. Those are all the ways we bring in revenue.
Thank you.
How big is your staff and development?
We are a 4-person team.
Very small for all
No.
that you do.
That is true. We feel that, but we have fun.
Well, one of the most fun things for me over the years has been chance meetings with major performers after the show. We found
Totally.
ourselves sitting next to Stan Getz about 30 years ago. And I found myself standing next to Mel Torme at the airport.
Wow.
What a nice guy he was.
That's awesome.
That's been really memorable.
It is really special to have these folks in our community from time to time. They're great.
Any other questions? Can do like one more probably. Ally?
So, I probably shouldn't be embarrassed to say this, because half of the staff of the Rotarians here are probably members and they're gonna give me a hard time, but. So my membership has lapsed because I'm not very good at keeping track and I member up. And then the next year when my membership is due, I don't get any reminders. I'm not told that my membership has lapsed, so I don't re-up. Is that my fault?
I can tell you what we do. I don't want to blame you for anything.
Oh, great.
But when you're coming due, we send an email to everyone who's sort of coming due to expire. And then we now, actually this year, this probably wasn't happening when you last lapsed, but we now will even call everyone the month they're expiring to say your membership's expiring. And then we'll also send a letter, if you did expire.
Email the other day.
And you got the inadvertent email.
Telling me that and I said, that's not true.
That's true. Yeah, I'm sorry that you received that. That was the first time that's happened. But anyways, so we send an email before you lapse. We'll call you the month you're gonna expire. And then if you do lapse, we'll send a letter saying your membership has lapsed. And then we'll send another email actually. So sorry you didn't receive them.
No worries.
We can talk
I'll pay more
offline. We'll make sure we have your correct contact information.
Any more questions? Allie, this has been a pleasure.
Good. Thanks for
I
having me.
know for all of us, just wait a second, a couple things here, Allie. For you.
Oh, my gosh.
Because of your graciousness and being here, we're gonna make a donation in your honor to a Connecting Youth Mentoring Program from Williston Central School. So that, we appreciate you here. But when I get the flyer, Glenn, what an amazing array, like you said, what a breadth of, and I know we've got tickets for the Myth and Magic one and also for, another one coming up too, the Motown. So I mean, just a phenomenal array.
I should put in a plug. I think there's a few tickets remaining tonight. We have Come From Away, which is a Broadway
it's a
show,
great
which is
show.
amazing. And this is the end of their tour. This might be the last time to ever see it. And the premise, can I give a really quick premise of that show? It's so beautiful. So,
come from a ways tonight. If you're not doing anything, highly recommend. It's 80 minutes, no intermission. It's not a huge investment in terms of time. And this show is based on when 9/11 happened and all these flights that were in the air got diverted. A bunch of flights ended up in Gander, Newfoundland. And like 700 planes landed in a place that usually received like 6 planes a day. And so this really rural community came together, got food, shelter, clothing, blankets, everything for everyone who was there dealing with this incredibly traumatic experience. But out of it came these incredible relationships and friendships, and sort of in the most unexpected of ways, it was a transformative experience for the people who were there. So it's this beautiful, like, sort of story of like out of tragedy came these really beautiful human connections, and it's a great show. So
Might not let us land these days.
They probably still would.
I appreciate all of the adequate information too, the logistics of trucks coming in, and artists, and just that, and also all the other things in the community you do. I mean, I was aware of the breadth of the main stage, but all those, that is fantastic. So thank you for that. As one last thing we ask you to do is, we have a raffle that we have, and everybody's holding their tickets, anticipating it, so we gonna draw the raffle.
Great.
I just read the last 3 numbers.
All right. Who's gonna win?
There we go.
All right.
2, 4, 3.
Yes.
Oh, nice. Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. Sit right in front of you.
Thank you again, Allie.
Thank you so much, Allie, and thanks for making so much time for questions. I think
Yeah.
that's really fun to have a lot of interaction. Next, we're gonna have an inspiration from Susan.
And my inspiration was inspired by our guest speaker today, and you stole my thunder a little bit.
Oh, no.
Tell the story again anyway. On September 11th, 2001, airline passenger Jacqueline Pinto was flying home to New York from a vacation in Italy. During the flight, she heard the pilot announce a delay in landing, but did not realize how serious the situation was until her plane landed 1,000 miles away in Gander International Airport in Newfoundland, Canada. Hers was one of more than 250 flights forced to divert to Canada because of the closing of American airspace. 38 commercial flights touched down in Gander that day. I've actually been through Gander. It really is a pretty low populated. The mood on Pinto's plane changed from confusion to shock as news of the terrorist attacks reached the cabin. Pinto spent more than 24 hours confined to the plane with her fellow passengers and crew members as security personnel examined each diverted flight. Finally cleared to disembark, Pinto, the passengers, and the crew left the airport by school bus. Neither Gander, with a population just under 10,000, nor the surrounding towns had enough hotel space for the approximately 7,000 stranded passengers. But the local residents responded. Community television stations put out a call to lend a hand, do what you can. Schools and non-essential businesses were closed, allowing Newfoundlanders ranging from senior citizens to school children to volunteer. Greeting the plain people with warmth, locals provided meals, clean bedding, hot showers. Schools, churches, and Legion halls were converted into makeshift dormitories. Some residents, including the mayor of the town of Appleton, even sheltered visitors in their homes. The passengers on Pinto's flight were sheltered in a church. Area pharmacies filled prescriptions without cost. Banks of telephones were installed so visitors could call home, and donations of toiletries, clothing, and food flowed in. Once basic needs were met, the Newfoundlanders worked to entertain the visitors. They organized tours of the town, bowling matches, concerts of local bands. Visitors were also introduced to regional cuisine, including stewed moose. Maybe that's not unfamiliar. When asked about their generosity, many residents responded that their efforts were not out of the ordinary. For us, it was just every day, said Janice Goody, a local newspaper reporter. You don't turn your backs on people in need. The Plain people did not forget their time in Canada once they arrived at their final destinations. Passengers kept in touch with one another and their Newfoundland hosts by phone. Some have even traveled back to Gander for anniversaries of the attacks. One group of passengers even established a scholarship for students coming from Gander. And that scholarship fund has reached over $1 million as of the time of the writing of this story. And the Canadians too remember this extraordinary moment in their history. And they've established a Peace Park in Appleton. And they have annual remembrances of the time when all these passengers needed their help. There is goodness in the world. Appleton's Mayor Flynn said at a 2017 interview, that floats to the top in times of disaster. It's a meaningful time to remember this amazing kindness from our Canadian neighbors. And also if you can snag one of those last minute tickets, See Come From Away, which I believe won at least one Tony Award and is supposedly a really amazing show. Yes.